KCPE candidates to revise secondary school choices. Now, this is a directive that was given, and now standing 8 candidates can from today review their secondary school choices, even as authorities announced tougher measures to check cheating in this year's national examination. Now, there are some orders that were given by CS Magoha, including examination materials must not be transported in the absence of security officers. We have exam papers must be opened in exam rooms in the presence of candidates, security agents and invigilators. These are not new orders. It has been the standard modus operandi, but then of course we have them being reiterated, and this paper is what's on your screen right now. KCPE candidates to revise secondary school choices. Dr. Wandia, what do you feel about this headline and this story?
I mean, it's the same drama because it's difficult to talk about issues like equity, quality education, teaching, staffing of schools, resources. So this is low-hanging fruit. Exams are exciting because they are, it's very easy to it also has its own drama, and especially with this CS who is very vocal and very dramatic in the way he talks. So it's the same thing. It's low-hanging fruit, and that's why it's
and of course it touches closer to home, because many of us know somebody who's sitting for the exam, who is in the education system and at the level that is being touched on by the headline. So it is indeed to some extent low-hanging fruit. But what do you feel about the necessity of this move that has been made by the CS?
It doesn't address the bigger issues in education that I always talk about. So it's the cycle that we are going through all the time, talking about exams as if exams are the end all of education. So this is what we expect at this time. These are the headlines that draw traction from citizens. But also, it's a race. Exams are a race. So just like we like to watch football or we like to watch our runners, so exams are about preparing for the race. Who is going to win, and when they win, what prize will they get? It's almost like a reality show. So this is the adrenaline. This is part of the adrenaline that we are used to.
Dr. Riechi?
I think, to me, I quite agree with her. She's Kenya's education is about exams. Before we talk about the competence-based curriculum, which is what Kenya needed in 1963. The rest is about exams and competition, papers and so on. So this is quite timely, especially in view of the fact that there are children who complete primary education and they are admitted to schools they do not want. All right. And the worst scenario is a case where some are not admitted at all. And that's why I applaud the Ministry of Education is 100% transition policy. But I think choices would not make a lot of sense to me if what the Professor Douglas Odhiambo task force report recommended. All right. The task force that in 2011 was tasked to align Kenya's education to Kenya Vision 2030 and the Constitution of Kenya. The Constitution of Kenya has a provision that all Kenyans are entitled to quality basic education, which starts from ECDE to secondary level. So if the report recommended that we need to declassify secondary schools and with the time standardize them, equip them so that they are over time they are of the same standards, then choices will not make sense. And many of them be day schools. Because boarding schools are quite costly.
They are costly.
And that's why there is competition. There's a perception that they do better than day schools. So choices now make sense.
And some kids want to go there. They don't want to go there. They want to change it after some time. And this page 8 also is, you did talk about the CBC. And of course, we have another headline on the same page. We are being told that grade 3 pupils to be tested in 2 months. Now, learners in grade 3 will be assessed in September in what is called monitoring learners' achievement through national assessment. assessment. Now, the Kenya National Examination Council Officer Chief Executive Officer Mercy Korogo yesterday said monitoring learners' achievement for Grade 3 would be done between September the 16th. And of course, this is just giving us details of what to expect. But what do you feel about it being rolling out this soon in September, despite all the politics? As Dr. Wandia said, it's all drama, but then of course it is being rolled out, and now it's a reality coming up soon. Grade 3 pupils are going to be, tested. What do you feel about this one? You seem to be unimpressed.
Totally unimpressed, but I expected it. And when I was warning Kenyans about the competency-based curriculum almost 2 years ago, I said that the testing is going to increase because it is the nature of CBC. So, this is what I expected. I'm not at all surprised.
It is expected. And of course, do you feel that it is time? NAT has kept saying that they feel we are not ready for this. We're not ready for this rollout. But of course, CS Magoha said there's no two ways about it. We're going to do it, and it's actually happening. What do you feel about the state of affairs in the education sector as far as the CBC is concerned?
I disagree with the CBC completely from day one. I have explained that many times.
Yes.
And one of the things I said is that the problem with CBC is that it increases testing.
Yes.
And here we go. There is already a lot of research on CBC from other countries. I don't know why the government didn't take heed of that research. And they just went ahead and implemented this system.
So the research would indicate that it is not the best, or?
Definitely. It's not the best. CBC is for TVET. It's for workers. It's not for children in primary school. The reason why they have been able to persuade the public that this is the thing to do is because they marketed CBC with the language of Montessori. We take care of your child, we will develop their potential and whatever. But that is
focus
not
on
what
talents and what
focus on talents and all that. But that's not what CBC
that's not the reality.
So it's sort of like a dichotomy in the minds of the education policy makers. And so we are going to see these contradictions for the next 20 years.
Dr. Riechi, what do you feel?
I quite disagree with her. I'm a member of the National Steering Committee for Curriculum Reforms.
Yes.
I think what she is saying is a reflection of a misunderstanding of the framework and the objectives and the rationale for Kenya going competence-based curriculum.
But what's with all the testing? Because is this
now?
Yes.
So maybe we need to talk about, there have been a number of discussions
go ahead.
regarding we have to have competence-based curriculum. I say yes, but there are people who do not understand the conceptualization of CBC. Competence-based curriculum should be, the so-called new curriculum or competence-based curriculum is not anything new with regard to content. It's how it's delivered. It's not for TVET.
Okay.
So I would recommend my colleagues to go to the website of the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Look, there's a link on curriculum reforms. There are documents there. One of them is very key. The framework for basic education, basic education curriculum framework.
Yes.
It explains that it's not about TVET. All right. This is what Kenya needed. But regarding the headline, I want to caution Kenyans
against.
It's the media that is treating Kenya to drama. It's not exams at grade 3. It is about assessment. The third of, is it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I think the fifth paragraph, starting compiled report, reads as follows. She said the guidelines, instructions, and assessment tools to be used by the schools to assess, not to test.
Not to test.
Not an exam. And this will be a continuous thing.
Okay.
All right? and I'm aware of the National Assessment System for Monitoring Land. This has been going on
yes.
in grade 3, all right?
Yeah.
And Uwezo Kenya, which is a project of the Women Educational Researchers of Kenya, has been conducting learning assessments at grade 3 or 2 over the years. So this is not about exam or a test that is going to lead to a
whether
certificate.
You qualify to another,
This is how it's practiced globally. It's assessing.
To gauge the students.
Correct, and helping them. And the tools, guidelines, is not a paper, but the newspaper, somebody reading grade 3 pupils to be tested in 2 exams. I mean, in 2 months. It's not testing. It's not an exam. It's assessing.
So the test
formal assessment.
So do you feel, with all that you were saying, she did talk about research that goes against the CBC.
Yes.
What say you about that?
Now, let me tell you, again, going to the task force report that was published in 2013. I was one of the 5 consultants that supported the task force.
Yes.
Right? I was hired by USAID.
Yes.
Now, that report, which I would encourage my colleague to read, makes a recommendation, very strong recommendation, that Kenya, because it reviews the history of education in Kenya, the challenges that the country has faced with unemployment, with the schools, focusing on exams and so on, and the 3 outcomes of an education and training process lacking in many learners: adequate knowledge, skills, and appropriate attitudes. These ones are missed. So many of the candidates completing various levels of education up to university, many of them do not possess those 3 attributes in reasonable amounts, and that's why we have huge unemployment among the youth and among graduates.
Now,
so competency-based curriculum will ensure that at each level, some competencies what learners can do.
Yes.
If you are teaching about biology, all right, and you are talking about a leaf, or the leaf of parts of a plant, you don't come with a textbook and draw, but you take learners outside to the outside. You show them a plant. They can even grow it. Then they can see different leaves, and then talk about it. So they can identify different leaves. There are those which are smooth, others are serrated, and so on, so that they can understand. They can be involved in germination, rather than a teacher telling them the conditions for germination. They can actually do it. Right? As learners, when they go out, they can practice. That is what competence-based curriculum is all about.
Okay. Now, Dr. Wandia, you're not for it, right? And of course, you have read the research, and based on that, you feel like there are better ways of doing it. What is the ideal in your view? He has said some very good things about the CBC and how practical it can be, but you have mentioned the shortfalls. So what would ideally be? No CBC, but of course we know that the old system is wrong. So what do you feel is right?
I think Kenyans have to move away from this system talk, because education is about teaching and learning. It's not about, is it 844 or 2633. So until we get out of that mindset, we are going to get confused by some of the points I'm making. I have read all the documents of KICD, and in fact I'm surprised my friend has not seen me engaging, and still I have not heard the case for CBC. What has happened is that the government chose the wrong nomenclature, the wrong name for what they want to do. If you want children to learn from the environment and you want a practical, learner-friendly class, you don't go for competency-based curriculum, because CBC in education research means teaching for the workplace. And that's the research. In fact, I went through many journals and books from US, from UK, from Singapore, from Malaysia, and the agreement is that CBC is about training workers. So why they chose that name and it's a name that triggers TVET, I really don't understand it.
But then
when it comes to teaching children, that is something that you train teachers to do. I already do it. I didn't need CBC. I used to take when I was teaching in high school, we used to meet under a tree to tell stories and practice language like that. I don't need CBC to tell me that. The problem is that the inspectors will come to the schools and say, why are you there? It's not in the curriculum. So really the problem was, it's this control, national control of what is happening in the schools. So even this assessment we are being told for grade 3, why should it come from Nairobi? And yet you have trained a teacher to know their children, to know what are their challenges, and to assess them based on what she's seeing in the classroom. But the government doesn't want to do this. They want to maintain control of what happens in the classroom. And this has been happening since Lord Delamere. We are not moving away from the national state control of what happens in the schools, when as an independent country we should be empowering our teachers to make curriculum. We should be having teacher referral centers where they can update their skills, get more materials. So we should be empowering teachers to do more in the classroom, but instead we are monitoring things from Nairobi, and that's what CBC is.
But Dr. Riechi does argue that we are doing this so that to meet the need for employment. Isn't that something that is important?
And that's the Lord Delamere logic that I am disputing. 55 years later, we can't still be talking about a direct link between education and employment, because even Nyerere said anyone who measures, an educated person who measures their value by money is a slave. So education in a national country should be for national cohesion, creativity, and then we need to open up the economy. Our economy is too rigid. We need only title deeds to get credit. People can't get money from creative ideas. Those are the things that need to be fixed. But you don't fix the economy through the education system. But again, this is low-hanging fruit. Government always goes for what is easiest to fix. And because it's not easy to fix the economy, you go for the kids and the teachers because they are a captive audience. You can fix them there, and then you can say, we are fixing the economy with education. But you're not fixing the economy, you're making the economy more rigid. And we are going to create a generation of workers that cannot think outside the box. And that's what CBC is.
Dr. Riechi, your last word on this mini debate that we are having.
Let me make one correction. I think we need to be very clear. And I know many Kenyans who have attended workshops and discussions around CBC understand better than what she's saying. Now, these guidelines and assessment tools must come from a central point, and that's NEC and the Minister of Education for uniformity. Now, she has impressed me that she is a well-trained teacher. You may be among the few who are well-trained. Many of our teachers in our primary schools and secondary schools did not receive adequate training, all right? And even what's going on now in our universities, and I'm part of the system. I teach education. I'm an education economist. The kind of teaching that is going on there, especially in education programs, Bachelor of Education, is not what used to happen. The focus on pedagogy is less now than what we went through. So it is suicidal to imagine that every teacher knows what to do. So these guidelines are to guide to help teachers do the same thing, and the results can be compared. And this is what happens with NASIMLA. NEC and the Uwezo reports that are titled "Are our children learning?"
And this discussion could go on and on and on. Of course, there are very many other issues, especially with regards to the personnel that is supposed to enact this CBC, the teachers enough. There's so much, and there's a lot of other stories in the paper that actually focus on the education sector. Study cites parents' failure on sex topics, as well as NAT officials to be investigated. There's a lot on the education sector, and if you're particularly inclined to that part